tie in with the popularity of the Wonder Woman film, which is more of like a family film, versus this film that has much more adult themes. Do you think there might be some sort of, just in that faction, besides the subject matter, it might be a little controversial?
I don't actually think so, actually, because to me, I made a really distinct decision when I decided to make this film that I wanted to tell the story of the Marstons as just an organic love story, and even as a filmmaker, treat it the way you treat any other prestige biopic. Do you know what I mean? That it's almost, that I didn't want to be like they're weird, otherwise their experience, or be like they're weird or kinky, or I just wanted to tell a really organic love story. And it's funny, I've been told by some people that they find the film even wholesome, which is interesting. But I do feel that it earnestly it doesn't shy away from the sexuality of their story, but it treats it in a non-gratuitous and non-exploitive way. And I think at this moment when we're experiencing this huge resurgence in Wonder Woman, that it's this perfect time to kind of go back and look at the ideals and of the people and the ideas that literally created Wonder Woman. So I don't feel like there's a conflict in those two things.
What drew you to the source material? That
I started as a Wonder Woman fan. I was always really loved her, and she was the only girl. It was a bunch of dudes in Wonder Woman for forever, and so I think representation is really important. And I saw myself in her, and I wanted to be like her. And as an adult, after I finished my first feature, I read the history. Somebody gave me a book about the history of Wonder Woman, and I read a chapter on the Marstons, and it just blew me away, their story, and I felt like it had been hidden from history, and that it was really worth telling.
How much of the Marston original idea of Wonder Woman is now contained in the actual Wonder Woman, the one with Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins?
Well, I think a lot.
Actually, it's pretty. Yeah. I mean, I came to Wonder Woman a bit late. Like I started reading all the comics when actually just before I knew about this project. but I then became quite into it, honestly, as a fan. Like it carried on beyond the filming of this film. I carried on reading Wonder Woman comics, and I carried on because the history of it being rooted in someone that was actually trying to create feminist propaganda for little boys to accept female authority is quite astonishing. And when you find that out, then you want to go back to the source material and kind of see how he's doing that. And then when I went to see the Gal Gadot film, I was like, bravo, actually. You thought a lot about it. You've really done it.
She did incredible.
She honored.
And I happen to know
his voice.
Yeah.
Did you find it difficult to get into the characters of them, knowing that they're real people?
Actually, the fact that they were real people helped me get into their character much easier because it was a true story, and the script is so lovely to read. You just think, oh, these people really made it work. They made something that in that day and age would have been so taboo, and they found an authenticity between the three of them, and so I didn't struggle at all. I found it very easy.
No, I didn't struggle at all. Elizabeth is so fun.
Yeah.
Come on, everyone wants to play someone like Elizabeth. I mean, as Angela conceived of these characters, they are tremendously attractive people who are so resolutely true to themselves and so sort of unclouded by the sort of judgment of society, and that is incredibly liberating and exciting thing to play because it's aspirational, it gives you hope, and that's what the film gives you actually. And also to your earlier point, why it doesn't really, there's nothing edgy or weird about this really. It's actually kind of incredibly hopeful
radical thing of all.
But that's the most radical thing about it, though, is that it's an unconventional story told in a very hopeful, non-judgmental, straightforward, loving way.
And just to tag on to that, is your process for creating this character in the film, do you go back to the original person and try and build off interviews or footage, or do you really try and find your own?
The 1920s was barely anything. I found as much as I could, but then at a certain point I was like, actually, there's enough vibrancy in the script that I can create something based on intuition. Staring at photographs of her really helped me. For some strange reason, like her just seeing the kind of defiance in her face made me kind of. And there were a couple of, like I got there was one line in a book somewhere about the fact that she was born on the Isle of Man, and then lived there for 5 years, and then went to Boston, and never lost her Manx accent, which is someone who's from the Isle of Man, which was a bit of a kind of like, I've got to pretend to a Manx accent, which I did actually, but as it turns out, a Manx accent is sort of like a very vague Northern English accent. So I sort of had to, I did go down a funny road of trying to go, what would a Northern English accent that's been living in Boston since they were 5 in the 1920s sound like? And weirdly, I found a Facebook group online. There was expats from the Isle of Man who'd been living in America. And I wrote them and said, can you send me an audio file of yourself speaking? I didn't say who I was or what I was doing. And they, bless them, they did. Can you just say some words? Yeah, that's exactly what I did, and it was actually really helpful. But that was the deepest in terms of preparation, the weirdest thing in terms of preparation that I did.
You mentioned that the film was quite wholesome, and there's nothing kinky.
No, I didn't say that. I said some people have said that they found it wholesome, and I said that we didn't want to make the kink exploitative.
Thank you for the clarification. But in this country, polyamory is sort of just getting a big sort of spotlight, and it is presented as titillation, as strange, as weird. And I wonder, particularly for the actors, mentioning that you stuck mostly to the script, did you use sort of studies or information about polyamory to sort of inform your characters in the way that you have?
We did. There was a lot of discussions because it's very easy to take a portion of society that isn't that well known and not do them justice. Maybe push the wrong elements of polyamory, for example. So we wanted to be very sensitive to it and show them in all the colours of polyamory, and also then put it back in the 1930s where there was anybody else around that was in that situation.
The Marstons didn't have this language. They didn't have words like BDSM. They didn't have words like polyamory. They were just doing what felt natural to them, and so it came to them in a very honest way. Yeah. And I think we approached it similarly. Does this feel credible? Yes, it does. And does this do I believe in this scene? Yes, I do. And there you go. But I do. I'm not naive to a community that we're speaking to and who hold this as, some of their great historical figures. And I want to do that justice.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all do.
I've been very, very gratified because a bunch of people from at different screenings, we premiered at TIFF and then we went to Fantastic Fest, and different people from the poly community coming up to me and they said thank you so much. Like, we've never ever had a positive representation of our community, and people always get it wrong, and have really been embracing the film. So I hope that continues because it's important to me.
So, in a world of comic books, there's a lot of superheroes who have secret identities. These normal people who were not trained spies or anything else pulled it off to the point where everybody could take a lesson for it. Why do you think they were so successful? Because not only did they hide it, they sort of flirted with it, the Family Circle article, etc. They sort of played with it. It wasn't closed curtains. They sort of teased it. So why do you think they were so successful? I'm so impressed. I feel like superheroes could take a lesson from these people. Why do you think they were so successful?
Because they had to be, I would wager.
Choice.
They didn't have any choice.
If they wanted
to be. I'm sure they wanted to be. the times were different. They're not much different, like,
That was one of the more difficult things, weirdly, in the acting is, I mean, actually not with the main trio, but when I was working with some of the other actors, is to really explain that this, it's not like, oh, you guys, stop doing that. Like, it was a different time. I mean, I can even remember a time when being gay, I didn't know any gay people. It could ruin your life. You know what I mean? And that was, in the 80s. But, it could not emphasize enough how taboo and how restrictive and I think that they, to the extent they were able to hide, it's because nobody would even conceive that is something that could exist, or happen. I just feel like a lot of what happened in all sorts of different unconventional relationships is that there was the kind of open secret, or just people just wouldn't see it, like they were invisible.
I think also that their lives weren't that, from the outside, they weren't that remarkable. They lived in a house, they had children, and they'd created this lie, and it seemed to work. I mean, they just were getting on with their lives. The main objective was to be together, and once they'd achieved that, the rest of their lives to the outside was unremarkable. So it wouldn't have. There was no flags waving or anything like that. So they sort of, and in that, like you said, in that time, people weren't looking out for that sort of thing, and maybe they would be more suspicious nowadays. But back then, as long as you sort of kept to yourself and got on with your lives, and that was.
They didn't have to fight like Lex Luthor.
Pardon the interruption. We have time for one more question.
Which has been for both of you the most challenging scene to shoot in this movie in an emotional way?
I think for me, the hardest one to get a grasp on and not take it too far and not push it too much into Marston's theory was the final scene in the hospital. Because even as he's dying and he knows he's not got not much left time on this earth, he knew that he had to get his wife to submit, use his theory basically to understand each other. You haven't seen the film yet?
No, I've seen it.
Great. But there's this well, he has this big scene. I'm not giving anything away, but there's and it was
It's a meaty scene.
it's a really meaty scene, and we couldn't start it halfway through. We realized to do the scene, which was about 8 pages long, we had to start from the beginning every time, and we had to do it for all three of us, so we all got the chance to feel the emotion build and find the moments where I think that for me was a hard one. Yeah, really difficult to find the balance and the levels and not push it too far and for it to be believable, and that this guy was...
Yeah, and I was on my knees.
Yeah. Now you're really setting them up.
That's publicity.
What was your hardest scene?
My hardest scene, it was probably that. I think probably the fundamental core of Elizabeth Marston is that she's this completely wild, free-spoken, radical thinker, totally contrary, totally empowered, totally brilliant, and yet also there is an utterly antithetical Puritanism at her centre, which is totally culturally enforced by the society that she's born out of, that's telling her what you're doing is wrong and you should be ashamed and you shouldn't do it, and to try and make both of those things that are mutually exclusive sort of make sense in her, like to not make her radicalism feel false and not make the Puritanism feel like something that's kind of put on, but something that's just real shame. That was really the knife edge for me. It was like trying to find both things.
Which she does brilliantly.
Yes.
It might be a good director.